Hi everybody. So I thought in honor of the first day of the Jewish month of Adar, which has the holiday of Purim coming up, I would discuss something that really doesn't have a ton to do with Purim except that a woman is at the center point of the Purim story. So for that reason, I figured I would snatch the opportunity to discuss what it means to be a woman, an Orthodox Jewish woman, and modest, tzniut, according to the Torah definition and today. So Orthodox Jewish women, they observe something called tzniut, and I call it tznius because I tend to butcher the Hebrew language along with my other Ashkenazi friends. And tznius basically is often defined as modesty, but what it really is it means a person should be dignified and we have to value ourselves for our innate beauty and our innate value, as opposed to considering ourselves who we are on the outside. We should view ourselves who we are on the inside. Female empowerment, according to the Torah view, can really be viewed by, if you look at Queen Esther in the Purim story, she courageously saved the Jews. She risked her own life. She's at the center point of the whole story, and she is considered an upright Jewish woman who is definitely tzniut. Or tznius. So how do we figure out what does it mean to be modest, to be dignified, and also to be a powerful woman? So if you look at what female empowerment looks today in the Western world, let's say you're a young teenage girl and you don't have so much Torah background or Jewish education, and you flip on the mainstream media, whatever it is, and you see Beyonce doing a music video. And if you don't know who Beyonce is, then good for you. But if you know who she is, then follow me. So Beyonce is someone who talks a lot about female empowerment and feminism. She's friends with Michelle Obama and Oprah Winfrey and a lot of powerful women. And a lot of her songs pertain to female empowerment. And Beyonce, if you look at the video and turn off the music, is almost entirely not dressed, or dressed in a very sensual way, in a way that definitely draws one's attention to her externals. And she's moving in a way that's definitely making a person notice her externals, and she's not particularly focused on the inside. So it's quite counter to what we consider female empowerment in the Jewish Torah viewpoint. On both sides of the I'm about to ostracize myself from both sides of the political parties, because on the one side you have these women who did this beautiful march, and when I say beautiful march, I mean it was admirable that they protested peacefully and nicely about something that they believed in. I always relate to people according to their idealism. But there were a lot of women who made a lot of attention by putting something on their head to represent a woman's anatomy. That, it ended up being something super vulgar, and how ironic, because they were trying to be empowering themselves. And on the other side, so I'll ostracize myself on both sides, I want to be equal here. We know that the President of the United States has talked about Miss Universe as Miss Piggy, and gone on Howard Stern and talked about, rating women and things like that. So both sides, both parties have really done a great job of objectifying women. And how ironic it is, because we are trying to prove ourselves powerful. Both sides, all women everywhere, are trying to make ourselves powerful, and we end up objectifying ourselves so much more. In contrast, a Jewish woman clothes herself modestly as a reminder that her worth is not tied up in her waistline or her anatomy or any of that, not on either side of the political equation, and also not in celebrity status. Nothing to do with what the media or Western world would define as female empowerment. A Jewish woman does not consider female empowerment at all. It's quite the opposite. If you go on a college campus, you'll see that girls all over, and it's obviously an age when maybe they're thinking about self-esteem and identity and all those things, they're dressed in almost nothing. And by the way, it's not just if you have a daughter who's a girl, or a wife who's a woman, or a sister, or a mother, or you're a woman. It's also if you're a guy. I have a lot of Facebook friends who are male, and I actually notice more now than ever that they are definitely showing themselves and their bodies in a way that I wonder, is there something that they're trying to prove? Why is there such an attention on the outside? So I do believe that there is an emphasis on us wanting to be judged on the externals because there's a pressure to be judged on the externals, and we end up really degrading ourselves and who we are on the inside. Okay, so that's one thing. Just 1 second, please. I need to have a little interruption to call my husband. Daniel, I'm on Facebook Live. I'm on Facebook Live right now. Okay, sorry about that little interruption. I had a child come down and was watching me perform. In the, hopefully you can't hear behind me. In the Orthodox Jewish world, it is extremely complex, even for an Orthodox Jewish woman like myself, who talks to a lot of Orthodox Jewish people. It's very confusing, and there's a lot of discussion surrounding what doesn't mean to be tzniut. And while we can all agree on certain basics, longer sleeves or a higher neckline or things like that, it's very confusing, the in-between parts. Like women, for example, are encouraged to be leaders, but at the same time, women are not supposed to attract too much outside attention. So it's very difficult to figure out what does it mean to be a tzniut woman. So for example, I've spoken to a lot of Torah leaders, Jewish leaders recently, and everyone's view sounds super different. And it's a struggle to see, where do we draw a healthy boundary? Where do we draw a line with certain things? And especially as the world around us evolves, it's very hard to see what we now consider to be tzniut, because while the world changes, we have to adjust with it. So sometimes I feel like we're changing behind the curve, and sometimes it seems like we're not being responsive enough to what's going on. Okay, sorry, camera issues. In the end, I only have one firm belief, and I'll conclude with this. My husband's rabbi in Israel, Rav Yitzchak Berkowitz, he would say that if you can look yourself in the mirror, and again, this is men and women alike, and say, I look and am acting and am a dignified human being, and I think that looks different for all people, as it should, then you are a tzniut person. And of course, I'm not talking about minimums of Jewish law of what defines dress code and things like that. I'm talking about real looking in the mirror, like internal looking in the mirror. How am I speaking? How am I acting? What am I doing? What are my behaviors? Who am I friends with? All those things encompass the laws of tzniut, of tznius. So I decide what looks like dignity to me, as long as I'm keeping the minimum. You decide, your sister decides, your daughter decides, your wife decides. What does tzniut look like? We have to look in the mirror and figure it out for ourselves. And last but not least, so I really think that as long as we can have a discussion and thinking and talking from an honest place, striving for truth, seeking truth, I really believe we're in a good place. Because sometimes I worry when I hear a lot of controversial and different opinions and contrasting opinions about what tzniut looks like. It worries me. We really don't seem to know. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of lack of clarity. But at least I take solace, which I hope you do too, in the fact that so many of us want to seek truth, want to be dignified, want to be powerful and valued for our internal selves and not external. And women and men alike have every right and privilege to go and strive for this thing called tzniut, and to figure it out for ourselves as individuals, and sometimes as a people. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Thanks for hanging in there. Bye.